Hi, everyone. Today we are going to be talking about the basics. I know we've kind of been in our kitchens a little bit and already kind of started working, but we're going to back things up a little bit and we're going to talk about some basic information in the culinary kitchen. So, the term that you see on your first slide, mise en place, this is a very common term that you will see in the culinary, or not see, excuse me, here in the culinary kitchen. What this term is, if I can get my slides to advance, is it's a common term that is a French phrase that means to put in place. Okay, so what are they putting in place? What do these chefs mean when they're saying mise en place? All right, they're referring to having all of your food and equipment ready to go for that specific preparation before beginning it. So, what that means is, before you even begin to start cooking or baking or whatever it is, you get everything ready, having all of your equipment out and ready to go, making sure it's working, having all of your ingredients out, getting it measured, having it chopped, weighed out, whatever it is that you need to do. Before you even turn on the oven, turn on the stove top, whatever it might be, you have everything ready to go so that when you do start, everything goes very seamlessly and flawlessly. It also is going to refer to your mental readiness. Now, this might kind of sound a little bit silly when we're talking about cooking or baking, but having your mental readiness and being focused on what you're doing in the kitchen is very crucial because you do need to be focused on what you're doing so we don't make those mistakes once we are in the kitchen, especially here in school where we have these small kitchens, not a lot of room to be working in, and we don't have a lot of time, especially this year when our class periods are only 40 minutes long. We need to be able to come in, know what we're doing, focus on what we're doing so we can get in, get what's needed to be done, and get out on time. Okay, so again, what is included for mise en place? Reading and understanding the recipe. That is, for my hybrid learners, that is what you are doing on your at-home days. Looking over that recipe. Okay, what are we going to be doing before we come into class that day? Kind of making that game plan. When I go up to the supply table, what am I going to need to bring up with me? What kind of measuring cups? What am I going to be putting those ingredients into? Okay, and then who's going to be doing the chopping of, the peppers, and who's going to be in charge of, cooking the chicken, whatever it might be. Kind of getting that feel for the recipe, making sure you're understanding what those terms mean. If the recipe says, you're going to fold in the blueberries, well, what does it mean to fold in the blueberries to your batter? Okay, if you don't know, that is the time to kind of, figure it out. Reach out to me, ask that question, Google search it, whatever you need to do to find that out before you come into class that next day. Again, any of your chopping and cutting tasks. All right, if you were making a broccoli cheese soup, all right, and you have your your mixture going on the stove top, and your recipe says add in 1 cup chopped broccoli, and you stop what you're doing on the stove top to chop up your broccoli. All right, chop, chop, chop. Then you put it in your mixture. All right, and then you're stirring, 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 and then it says, okay, now add 1/2 cup of minced onion, and you stop, take your time, mincing this onion, and then you come back over. Okay, you run the risk of overcooking your broccoli, having it bubble over, and all of that. Where if you had everything, chopped, minced, diced, whatever it needed to do, then as your recipe says, okay, add the broccoli, you can just pick it up, dump that bowl in, stir, stir, stir. Then it says, okay, now it's time to add the onion. You can pick up that bowl, dump it in, and then stir, stir, stir. All right, it's going to help so you don't, mess up your product. It's going to help with your time efficiency as well. Again, assembling all the ingredients necessary for a recipe. Now here in class, I will have everything ready and out for you. But if you're cooking at home and you are just kind of grabbing the ingredients as you're reading them through the recipe and as you're going, and you get halfway through a recipe, and let's say you don't have honey or brown sugar, well, what are you going to do? You can either Google to see if there's a substitute. You can pause what you're doing and run to the store and get that. or you scrap what you're doing and then just throw it all away. All right, so we don't want to have to throw away our product or take more time to have to run to the store or anything like that. So that's why assembling all those ingredients and making sure you have what you need is important to do. And then again, we already talked about this, making sure that all of your equipment is available and working ahead of time. Setting up your station prior to service. In here, when we have, something where we're going to be cutting, pulling the cutting boards from the front table, getting the knives from the front drawer, making sure that you have what you're going to need out and ready to go, getting your station set up. All right, so we're not running around in the middle of a lab trying to get things last minute. All right, so why do we need to know about mise en place? Why is this important? Why am I taking the time to go over it? We've already kind of mentioned a lot of the reasons, that time efficiency, right? Making sure things go very smoothly. A lot of the basic skills that we talked about are a part of mise en place. And you're going to hear me talk about this a lot in class. Those of you that are hybrid learners, you will hear me mention this word and you'll hear me refer to it a lot in our labs. Mise en place, okay? You need to be looking over those recipes and really prepare yourselves for those cooking experiences. Next, we're going to dive in and talk a little bit about knives. The chef knife is the chef's most important tool. And knives are made from one of three types of metals. And I'm going to just really quickly skim through this, gang. If you really want to look at more into it, you certainly can. There's carbon steel, stainless steel, and then high carbon stainless steel. What you need to know is that carbon steel is the oldest type of metal that knives are made from. But there was a lot of flaws with it. And then stainless steel is what they then switched to. That is a very hard metal, which was great. It kind of got rid of all the negative parts of the carbon steel, but it was almost too strong where it made it hard for them to sharpen. And then high carbon stainless steel is what most knives are made of today. So we're just going to kind of skim through all of these. You don't really have to worry about that. Sorry, thought I got rid of these slides. Knife care. When you're talking about knife care, you always want to wash your knives by hand and then store in the designated place. In our classroom, we have those stored in the front table up front in the top right drawer. So now we're going to talk about different knives. The first knife that we're going to talk about is the chef knife. So I have an example here of what our chef knives look like in class. You can see that it has the handle here and then the long blade that's thick and then comes to a tapered point. The chef knife is also sometimes referred to as the French knife. And again, it is the most knife used in the kitchen. This will be used for basically all of your cutting tasks. Your chopping, your slicing, your dicing, your mincing. Okay, the blade length can vary between 18 to 14 inches. Then again, as you can see that the blade, most of your cutting is going to take place right around here. All right. Then we have our utility knife, which is kind of a smaller version of our chef knife. It's going to be used for a little bit of our lighter kitchen work. The blade is usually between 5 to 7 inches. And if you notice the difference between the chef knife and the utility knife, the blade is obviously thinner. So it's not going to be used for chopping tasks. Now, some people, instead of referring to this as a utility knife, they're going to refer to it as a steak knife. All right. A slicer is another common knife. Now, we don't have any of these in our classroom. I just wanted you to be aware of it. The slicer is a very long, sharp blade. It would be used to cut big pieces of meat in a sawing motion. A serrated slicer, and it's hard to tell in the picture, and I don't know if you can tell in my video, but the serrated slicer, what I want you to be aware of is that it has kind of this saw teeth here. As you would in a saw. I don't know if you can see that or not. But again, it has the serrated teeth, and it would be used for cutting pastries. The reason for that is it would allow you to saw through those pastries so you wouldn't smush those pastries and they wouldn't crumble. And then the next knife that we're going to talk about that we have in class is the paring knife. And I don't know if you can tell the difference between the paring knife and the chef knife, if you can see the difference in those sizes. All right. The paring knife, well, the definition of paring is the act of cutting away the skin or the peel. So think of like your fruits and vegetables. As you can tell just by looking at it, it is small and it has a small handle and a small blade. All right. This would be used for cutting your garnishes, so like those really decorative items that you would see on a plate, or any other detailed work. Okay. That small handle and the small blade really gives you a lot of control over what you're going to be cutting and doing. All right. So that is just a really quick, fast synopsis over mise en place and knives. The next video, we'll talk about knife skills and how to execute the knife cuts and all of that. So thank you so much.